Yo, what it do, beautiful people? Gene Williams here. I'm one half of Unbreakable Souls. Gotta bring my brother into the room. Coach G! Gotta put the shows up, Coach G!
What's up, man?
What it do,
What's
Pam? What it do, Pam?
what, what,
I'm sorry.
what's the shades? I like that look, bro. What's up with
I do
that, man?
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I got shine on a little bit. Gotta keep the shining out my eyes, though. You know
Okay. Okay.
what I
I'm liking that look, bro. You should have told me so I could have matched up with you. But hey, you doing your thing.
mean? I'm about to take him off so I can read.
Okay. I'm like, he want all the shine today.
Hey, listen, blame. Hey, you better be glad I got my grill in today, too.
Okay. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm great. Just came from a great event. I had the opportunity to work with a group of men at a urban black-owned farm in the city of Memphis. So it
That's
was
what's
great.
up. That's
We had
what's up.
about 25 people there, and it was in nature, so it was very grounding. It was just dope. It was very dope.
Yeah. Sounds like it,
Definitely.
man.
How about you, man? I know you got some new things popping.
Yeah, I just got home. I had an event that I spoke in this morning. AYPN, Activate Your Power
Yeah,
Now.
yeah,
So shout out to my girl Izzy, um, and James, and my girl Evie. All them people, my fam at
yep. Squad.
AYPN. So yeah, that's my tribe, bro.
Hell
So
yeah.
yeah, we were talking on fatherhood. Honor that
Awesome.
father,
Yeah.
um, protection. So just I sent it. I sent you a text. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
kind of you got an Evie spoke today, so she was off the
Oh yeah.
chain too. So you know how she goes.
Right.
But yeah, it was good, man. It was good.
That's awesome, man. I hate that I couldn't make it though, but I wanted to. I'm glad
Yeah.
you sent the link because I actually wanted to check it out, so I will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we got another one, I believe, next month. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm on tap for that. I have to look, but it'll
Right.
be good. I'll be there to support if I'm not speaking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We
Awesome,
do a
man.
good job of supporting each other.
Right.
So hey
That's what
man,
that's
this
what
one
that's what
is
the tribe does. The
yeah,
tribe supports each other.
we got a great tribe, man. I'm really thankful for that.
Right.
Really thankful for that. And then this lady came in, and I can't remember her name. And I guess some of the things I said really resonated her. And then she
Yeah.
threw some stuff back at me, man. It just blew my mind,
Yeah.
that was very encouraging to me.
Awesome.
So it was a great morning,
Awesome. Well
pouring
deserved. Well,
and then
right.
getting poured back into. So it was
Exactly.
beautiful.
That's exactly how it should be.
Yeah.
Exactly how it should be.
Yeah.
If they ain't feeding you, you don't want them around. Because if they don't feed you, they're gonna kill you. And that's how it
Okay. That's a whole nother topic to talk about.
goes. Big facts.
So,
Yeah, that ought to be a topic, like being judicious with your with who you allow in your presence.
okay.
Like how everybody said, my granny told me to be my friend's house, pick my fruit.
Say that again. I like that.
Yeah, everybody I think it was the first song or one of the first. It was off the first album. She said my granny told me to pick my friends like I pick my fruit. My granny told
Mm,
me that was when I was only a year. Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah. That's like picking the people in the boat with you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We need to make sure on that. But this one, is really going to be interesting.
Right.
I don't know if you got those talking points, but
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
yeah, this is going to be because this is what it morphed into for us last week. We were
Right,
talking about just generic
right.
uh, financial trauma. And by the way, everybody, welcome. I know we already did that, but Unbreakable Souls, financial
Yeah.
trauma part 2 today, and we really wanted today dive into uh, racial or really racism in America has well, let me just say it this way: racism in America has had a profound impact on the financial well-being on the Black community, and I'd have to add the brown community in that too.
Mm-hmm.
And so today we're going to talk about some impactful examples of financial trauma caused by uh, past racism, current racism, and if things don't change, it's going to be future racism.
Right.
So um, we kind of threw out. I don't know what's. I can't even remember how was on our list today, but this will be interesting discussion. So you want me to throw the first one out there? You ready to go?
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
Anything else you
I'm
want to
back ready.
say? Or
Let's dive right in.
Let's dive right in. So,
Let's dive right
I
in.
mean, the elephant in the room when you're talking about financial trauma with Black people, brown and black,
Right.
well, I'll say Black people on that one, it's slavery,
Right.
slavery and Jim Crow. Um, the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws, which, by the way, a lot of the Jim Crow laws are still on the books
It-
as we
exactly.
speak.
To this day.
To this day, as we speak, this is 2024, and
Yep.
some of the Jim Crow laws are still on the books in the South.
Yep.
But anyway, they
Mississippi,
say again.
Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, and those are the only three I can think of off the top of my head.
Right, right.
But I know those for sure.
Well, those laws have had a long lasting economic consequence for the Black community. I mean, obviously, they're devastating in the present time when they were enacted, but, you know,
Right.
they're still here.
Right.
So, I mean, slavery denied generations of Black individuals the opportunity to accumulate wealth. And Jim Crow laws that came right behind that enforced segregation and limited access to education, employment, and housing, creating significant economic disparities that are still present to this day. And when I
Right.
think about, the rebuttal to that is people are going to, say different things. But even when Blacks separated themselves and were forced into separate communities, and created our own communities, our own banks, our own hospitals, our own educational systems.
On business partners.
Yeah, all these businesses,
Yep.
hospitals and grocery stores and all these different
Yep.
things. There was still a jealousy that took place that would step in and stamp out all the
Right.
greatness of what we had built.
Right.
What's your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk specifically about Tulsa, and how
Ooh,
they
hoo,
came.
hoo.
Yeah, exactly. How they came in and destroyed. I mean, it's a thriving. They did this not only, and I know they did it in North Carolina as well. They also did it in Florida. But we had our own communities. We had everything that we needed, and because they were jealous, they started a war with us over. They said later on, a black man looked at a white woman or something idiotic, and started a war and decimated Black Tulsa. They bombed it. The military came in and bombed it, and then they allowed the white people who did it to walk away, and the black
Well,
people who were involved were put in jail or were either dead. You know what I'm saying? So like this country is built off of that type of discrimination. When you see a people who are um, devalued in society as a whole, and then they start to build something, you take it away from them because the fear is that if we become powerful and we take away their ability to be powerful, and truthfully, if you understand the universe itself, we can all thrive. There's no reason for us to have a crabs in the barrel mentality where we're trying to pull someone else down because they're trying to rise up. But that's how it goes.
Yeah,
that
just
was
really
And
quickly. Sorry to interrupt y'all, but I just brought this in because I was actually trying to find the quote because you mentioned Durham and everything, and we got this uh, exhibit that talks about it. And there's a quote from
oh,
Booker T. Washington and from W.E.B. Du Bois. But I wanted to read this quote to y'all because I actually went and took a picture of it so I could read it factually and everything. But it says, "Today there is a singular group in Durham where a black man may get up in the morning from a mattress made by a black man." In a house which a black man built out of lumber, which a black man cut and planned, he may put on a suit which he brought at a colored haberdashery and
yeah,
socks knit at a colored mill. He may cook victuals from a colored grocery on a stove which a black man fashioned. He may earn his
yeah,
living working for a colored man, and he may be sick in a colored hospital, and he may be buried from a colored church, and the Negro Insurance Society will pay his widow enough to keep his children in a colored school. This is
yeah.
surely progress. That was an excerpt from W.E.B. Du Bois's The Upbuilding of Black Durham, the success of the Negroes and their value in a tolerant and helpful Southern city. So I just wanted to know what
Awesome.
y'all thought about that because that's what y'all
mm.
thought about the quote
When
that
was that written, Mark?
that was written, I want to say in the early 1900s, so around the
Mm.
time of like the strike, the height of what was our Black Wall Street and all along those lines. So
Yeah.
Okay.
everything that you wanted was just contained in like one neighborhood, and you could get it all the things that we need and we talk about what
Yep.
we want now and everything. But I do have a
Right.
quick question for you, not based on that quote, but just to get back to our conversation and everything. But I sometimes have people, even to this day, and I know that because I've told you this, Gene. I don't know if I've told you this, Coach, and everything. But I've got people to this day that will tell me that um, the banks don't cheat against people that are black and brown and all along those lines, and that it is
What?
a fair system. So I just wonder when you hear that, because I've heard it not just from white folks, but other people as well, because they'll claim that the banking system is just and fair, and that this is
So,
old conversations that we don't need to be talking about in the 21st century. So, what do you say when you hear people say that? Because I've heard literally some Europeans say that to me straight to my face.
so first off, that's absolute BS, and you know that. I mean, so banks discriminate not only based off of color. Now that was the major thing before, but they also uh, base it off of economic background. So now,
Mhm.
for a poor white person were to go to the bank because they have no collateral, they're not going to get a loan, or if they do, it's going to be at a lower rate. Black people have all the collateral and the great credit all they want to, and they'll still get discriminated against.
Mhm.
And then banks have a say so in how the housing market is adjudicated as well, and that's where redlining comes from. You raise the price, you raise the price of where people who look like us live, and make it hard for us to live there. But then you have, Caucasians and others who live in a similar community, and they have everything at their disposal. They get all the money that they need. The interest rates are lower, you know, and we can go on and on and on about that one.
Well,
But that's big.
pause there, because as Mark said, we want to educate, because some people are going to be like, "What in the world is redlining?" Because they don't think
Oh
that
yeah.
exists. So let me just read it to you. In the mid 20th century, and that's still prevalent today, redlining was a discriminatory practice where banks and lending institutions denied loans or offered unfavorable terms to individuals based on their race or the racial composition of their neighborhood, kind of what you just talked about. This
Right.
led to limited access to affordable housing and reduced
Yep.
wealth accumulation for minority communities.
Yep. Yep. And it's
A
a
real
real
life
practice that.
example of that is my father. I just said I spoke this morning. I talked on a little bit of his story, us moving from St. Louis to Kansas City, and he
Right.
worked for a finance company that worked hand in hand with banks, various banks
Mhm.
across the country. Rose to a management position, an executive position. They entrusted him to move him to Kansas City from St. Louis to run an entire office for himself.
Man.
He noticed that there was some discriminatory practices going on with his staff, and what he noticed was redlining. He did
Mhm.
some research and found out that his own staff was redlining black individuals, black families, and he put a stop to it. When upper management above him found out about it, it was probably one of the staff members complained that
Mhm.
he put a stop to it. He was reprimanded severely, and he rebutted against that, was reprimanded again, and then finally fired from his management position. He sued the company. This is growing up as a child. Sued the
Mhm.
company, won a large lawsuit against them, but left the company and just went a different direction with his life. So you can't tell me it doesn't exist.
Right.
And that was 20, 30 plus years ago. But I'm a recruiter in a local college here. And when we had just a few months ago, when we had Black History Month, I challenged my campus president to do some research on Kansas City. And she wanted to
Mhm.
get some new information on our city. And I threw that at her. I said, you ever heard of redlining?" And she didn't really know what redlining was. So I kind of explained, as I just did, read the quote of what redlining was. And she still was like, "Was that happened still here in Kansas City?" And I said, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, yeah." So not only, I was like, just to give you a hint, do some research on the street called Troost Avenue here in Kansas City. Historic, is the dividing line. You have to remember, Kansas City was a sundown town.
Mhm.
Kansas City home of the
Explain
mighty
that to them.
Chiefs, two-time Super Bowl champions, was a sundown town.
Which
Okay,
is
a sundown town meaning the dividing line of the city, which was Troost Avenue and still is Troost Avenue, meaning that on one side, I think it was the west side, blacks had to be on the west side or the east side of Troost Avenue by sundown, or it could possibly mean your life. So I had her do a deep dive in that. The information that she brought back to me absolutely blew my mind because I thought, I'm like, man, you can feel the weight of racism and segregation and, Jim Crow type laws and redlining type things here in Kansas City, but I never really just took the time to dive into the statistics. She threw
right.
statistics at me and it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Kansas City is number 9 in major cities in the country.
Wow. With redlining or just
Yes,
wow. Wow.
floored me, absolutely floored me.
Yeah.
And I was dating a girl that wouldn't believe. I mean, if the information slapped her in the face, she would have never believed it. But those were the statistics that were mounted up by the counties and
Yeah.
government of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Number 9
Yeah.
in the country. Unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the deal. I think people think because it's not happening to them, it's not happening. Period. And
Say that
it
again. Say that again because that's always the response
right.
from the other groups. Well, has
Right.
that happened to you? And
Right.
it doesn't have to specifically happen to me for it to be real. If it can happen to you or you, it can happen to me.
Yeah. Right.
I saw your
Because
mom
those
just put a comment up there and everything where she was literally just reading about redlining this
redlining.
morning, and after you shared that story, and it was even talking about the fact that it's ridiculous and all along those lines. But I had
Yeah.
two conversations that were very scary in a lot of ways, and it comes back to what we're talking about with this financial trauma and everything. Actually, it was, as y'all know, I get around by mass transit. And I was on a bus, and it was a sister earlier today that was talking about one of our campuses here. It's a, PWI, predominantly white institution, everything. And she was, I think, in the sociology department, and she was talking about how a lot of the sisters and brothers that were working in that department, and I'll go ahead and say it was North Carolina State because they had a big run in basketball, are disappearing. And it's like the administration doesn't care and isn't concerned about the fact that they are losing a significant portion. And even sometimes our allies are being lost. Because one of the things I did yesterday is I went to an African drumming performance and ran into
Mhm.
Tim Tyson, who is very much of a historian about everything from Emmett Till to a number of other things, including Boxcar Willie. And he was basically telling me
Wow.
that he's being drummed out of his job over on Duke's campus and everything. So sometimes there are people that are uh, kind of choking those that are the educators and those that have this
Right.
knowledge that should be encouraged versus being drummed out.
Right. And they do that for a reason. It's like this intentional ignorance. You know how
Hmm.
they're in school taking out the talk about slavery. I mean, honestly, when I was going to school, they didn't talk about slavery in detail enough. They didn't talk about, our contributions to this country. If it were not for us who came here before the Europeans, did you hear that? We came here before the Europeans, and we helped build this uh, country up. Um, and then they brought people from outside of this country. So we have to remember again. I'm saying that there were us here first, and then they also brought others of us from other places. So it goes way deeper. And with you have for instance, we talk about things like Jack Daniels. This is a liquor company who actually stole their formula from a company called Uncle Neary's, which is
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
maybe about an hour and a half away from me. They
National story. Yeah, from a
right,
couple of months
exactly,
ago. Yeah.
right. They stole their recipe and claimed it as their own. And Jack Daniels has been doing billions of dollars in sales every year. Uncle Nearest is just starting to get their feet, wet with money in that industry. But this is how it goes. Like, for instance, Thomas Edison had hundreds of black uh, scientists and engineers under him that was creating things, and because they're black, they couldn't get a patent. So
Mm-hmm.
he took their work and patented, and now it's his work. You see how that works? Because
Mm-hmm.
we're black, we created it. He didn't know how to do it, but because he's white, he can go to the patent office and get a patent.
Right.
And that's how we are treated in this country. We are treated as less than, but we bring everything to the table. We're the ones who created the math, the science, the government, you know what I mean, the religions, everything that you do. We created it. There was a blackface on it first. So,
I mean, we created the GPS, and people forget that, but we literally created the GPS. The GPS was
yes.
created by
Yep.
a person of African American descent
Yeah.
and all along those lines. And every time that you are driving, or even if you're on a bus and you're stopped at a stoplight, exactly.
Stoplight.
Yep.
Exactly.
So
Garrett A.
there's a
Morton.
number of things that were used on a regular basis. I understand that even some of the common items that are used, like the ironing board and some other things along those lines,
Exactly.
were also
The,
created by.
the refrigerator,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the refrigeration system, the microwave,
yeah.
the freezer, all of that stuff. We created it. All of it. I mean, music, the
Well,
guitar, the banjo. I mean, we can go on and on.
This
and
is
I do want to
No,
say, oh, what's mom saying before I say this?
She said she heard Billy Graham talk this week about a black man walking beside Jesus, and he also said Jesus is not white. So
he's
apparently, the
not.
believing evangelist is saying what we've always known along history and everything, but apparently
Wow.
they're letting it be known this time around.
Billy Graham
So
said that? Wow.
yeah, and it's
That's
good. Good.
impressive.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear he's speaking some truth. I mean,
But
the fact
be-
that good.
before we, yeah, 'cause I want you to hold your thought. I
Yeah,
just want to say this because it's almost a disclaimer, and I feel like we almost have to say this, and it's ridiculous that we
yeah,
have to say this because it feels like anytime that you want to express or highlight or exemplify Black excellence, then there's always a pullback of, why, or there's an attack on whiteness or something
right,
else. And there's nothing wrong with Black people just saying, we want our knowledge, we want our history, we want our contribution to be made known. There's
right,
nothing wrong with Black people wanting to celebrate the greatness of what we've come from, the stock that we've come from. um,
right.
so I don't know if I have to say that, but I'm not necessarily apologizing because we're unapologetically
No,
saying the things that we're saying. But
right,
there is no attack. That's not what this is about. This is about
right,
highlighting facts,
right.
things that are real that have happened in this country, and that are
And see,
still happening in this country.
what disgusts me about that response from European counterparts or whatever is that you have a system that will lie about your contribution as a people, will say that you created something that you know very well you didn't, and will take the people who created it and push them down and wipe out their history. They do it all the time.
Hmm.
I mean, they went to Africa and burned down whole libraries, knocked off noses
Mm-hmm.
of statues and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But you're mad because I realize now that we're the creators of this, and I want to be like, hey, we created that. So it makes you bad. It makes you look bad because I'm saying, oh, I created that and I have value. When this society creates a narrative where we have no value and
Right.
they take our lives like it's nothing,
Right.
But speaking
and
of
you're
that, no
mad,
value,
yeah,
and even coming back to the fiscal side of this and everything, I hate to say it, but this is the year 2024. We're going to come into 2025, and I know that both of you gentlemen know, just like I know some gentlemen as well, that have literally gone to banks for loans and been turned down by the loans, but they had a white associate. Sometimes it wasn't even a partner. Sometimes it was somebody that was employed by them, and they sent that person in to get the loan, and that person got the loan. And sometimes
right,
there is this notion of having to, I do use this expression, but I'm just going to use it because it fits the narrative of what we're talking about. Sometimes people have to fake the funk because they got to like pretend that the
yeah,
person is the boss, even though he's not really the boss, in order to get the loan, because the banks still have a messed up mentality in some
yeah,
cases of who they want to loan to. And that can be some serious financial trauma and everything. Imagine that you are the boss of a company. You've had this company for, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years, and you're trying to go to another loan. You go there to the bank turns you down, and then you got to go and find your white janitor and send him into the place to get the loan. Tell me that's not some
Right.
trauma.
Yeah. His ass backwards. Some
Yeah.
shit
Yeah.
like that. So actually, let's move on to the next step because I think this will be a good part too. So we're going to talk about the wealth gap. The
Mhm.
wealth gap between black and white households remains substantial. Historical disadvantages, including discriminatory policies and practices, have hindered the ability of black families to build intergenerational wealth. This contributes to lower home ownership, limited access to capital for entrepreneurship, and a lack of financial resources to weather economic hardships. And I mean, we know that at any job you work, you can do the same job as a white counterpart and get paid a third of what they get paid. And you do three times the work. I mean, that happens all the time.
Hmm.
I've been on jobs where you know I have all the skills and experience, and the person who has white skin and just has, say, a degree, certain degree, or maybe they have a master's. I have this, they have this, and because they had that degree, no experience whatsoever, they get that job, but they have no idea what they're doing. You know what I mean? It happens all the time.
Yeah, it definitely happens all the time. As a matter of fact, earlier this year, the Congressional Black Caucus in our Congress, tried to put together a resolution that was aimed at ending the racial wealth gap. And actually, a relative of mine, Sandy Darity, who's very much involved in the whole reparation conversation, was part of that conversation as well. But definitely, whether it's us looking at the cost and everything, because as a matter of fact, there's a report here that says that the um, white Americans have an average wealth per capita. I want y'all to hear this number of $284,310. That's the average wealth of white Americans right now and everything. Can you guess what the average is for African Americans or Black Americans and all along those lines? I can tell you it's nowhere near 284,300.
So maybe 50,
It's less than
50,
that.
60,000.
It's less
Less
than.
than
It's 44,100.
that is crazy.
284,310 compared to 44,100. Now you want to tell me that there's not a wealth gap and all along those lines. And part of that comes back
And that's
to what we were promised,
huge.
which we never got, which is the whole notion of 40 acres and a mule.
In
I
a
was just
mule,
about to
right?
say.
Well, but what they did is the history is they gave it to the slave owners.
Mhm.
They gave the reparations. They gave that to the slave owners. Even the 40 acres and the mule was given to the slave owners, or it was withheld.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we doing? What are
Well,
we doing
even
here?
so many of them who did break away, and families like the Tulsa Wall Street, Black Wall Street, that did break away and create their own societies, to do what they could to decrease the wealth gap and built up powerhouse societies. Then it was all stolen and taken. I mean,
Yeah.
you're pushed off into some of the worst parts of land. I'm trying to think of the story. I might have to look it up while I'm talking here. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the black families were pushed into this region of Tulsa, or not Tulsa, but I'll look it up while we're talking, in Oklahoma. Um, and they struck oil, and it ended up being the richest town in American history. So that'll be easy to Google.
Right.
Um,
While you're Googling that and everything, I was going to bring up what you just said earlier about that difference in the lands. Because one of the things that Sandy Jarrett and his wife, Kristen Mullins, talk about and everything is the origins of this
Multiplication.
gulf in black and white wealth stem from the immediate aftermath of slavery, which is what you were
Yeah.
saying. When a
Right.
promise made to provide the formerly enslaved with 40 acres in land grants were unmet, while many white Americans were provided substantial handouts, typically 160 acres of land in the West. So they got four
Right.
times what we were going promised to get, which we didn't
Right.
get.
Yep. Yep. And like I said, a lot of the money that was supposed to be given to the former slaves or former enslaved was given to the slave owners to basically compensate them for the loss of a worker. You know what I'm saying? That's how they do it. That's how they did it. Like, wow. Oh, it's the whole America is fair for who? It's fair for who? It's not fair for us at all. And that's the goal. Um, dang, there was something I wanted to say.
So this is talking about a law in Oklahoma. Oklahoma passed a law that allowed white settlers to seize control of the land by appointing white guardians
Hmm.
to children whose land had struck gold. Why were they? Why were the white guardians needed for the children whose land had struck gold? Because they murdered their parents.
Thank you, thank you. I was just going to say they killed the
They
parents.
murdered their parents, left children who literally were sitting on gold mines of oil,
Yep.
just pouring through the ground. Put these guardians over them, and basically took their land.
Yep.
Yep.
And I did look it up for you, coach, and everything, but it says at the time Greenwood was very likely the most prosperous black community in the country, and
Hmm.
Tulsa, the Magic City, was one of America's fastest growing cities, an oil boom town following the 1905 discovery of the Glen Pool oil reserve 15 miles south of the town. So that oil reserve you were talking about was the Glen Pool oil reserve. So that's the one that I think you had in mind. But literally, that's a bunch of land and a bunch of resources that should have been part of the Tulsa narrative that unfortunately was not as much of the narrative as it should be.
Yep. Man.
Yeah, those stories are hard. I remember when I went to Tulsa, I used to do ministry in Tulsa a lot, and I would go there and actually walk the streets of
Man.
Greenwood. That was
Wow.
hard. It was almost as if you could hear the blood crying up from the ground,
Right.
from the events that took place. The travesty and tragedy that took place. That the United States government bombed its own city, um,
Exactly.
because there were black people there, who
Hmm.
had money, who had great wealth,
Right.
had been
And we
pushed
keep.
off on that land,
Yep.
and as useless and worthless land, and it turned out to be one of the greatest oil
Right.
reserves in
Yep.
American history. And people just living their lives on the land
Right.
that was granted. You didn't want it, so we take it. We'll build a living out. We'll scratch out a living here,
Right.
and then you just come in and take and steal and murder
Yep.
because you're not happy with the lifestyles that we just created because it's better than yours. I mean,
Right.
that narrative
Right.
is all over the country. It's spoken.
Yes.
That's New York City. It's
Yes.
Washington D.C. All over Florida.
And where is it
Right.
in New York City? Because isn't it in a
Yeah. The
area
park.
that a lot of people love to pride and everything, and they
Central
point to it
Park.
another time?
Yeah.
Central
Central
Park,
Park.
right?
Yeah, when I
Yeah. That
learned
was
that about Central
black
Park,
owned land. Yep. Yeah. Yep. They went through and
yeah,
decimated the
I mean
people
it's
because they
basically
were.
graves.
Yeah.
You're running
Exactly.
on
And
graves of
thank
black
you.
people.
And
Oh yeah.
that's why there's so many trees that are huge and beautiful. It comes from the nutrients from black bodies that were buried there
Yep.
in Central Park,
Yep. Exactly.
murdered because
And
they had
those
created opulence out of nothing. They were forced onto that land and created something out of nothing. And then I was like, oh, you can't have that. We want that. So we're gonna kill you off and then make this a park.
But sometimes they do it in a more subtle way and everything. Because like I said, we're talking about the ones that
Gentrification.
were the more devastating ones, which we know are very easy to talk about, like Tulsa and even the Wilmington fires and a lumber or things like that. But whether it's
Yes.
Winston-Salem, whether it's even where you are in Tennessee and a number of other
Rosewood, Florida.
places, they sometimes did it through urban renewal and also the
Urban
places that
renewal.
they chose to put the highways through. And there have been documented cases of them showing that they put the highways through these neighborhoods that were thriving because that was
Yep.
the easier one to grant. And we had some people that, I hate to put it this way, we got some sellouts in our community because we were talking earlier about every friend ain't a real friend and everything. And they were going for the
And
money.
all skin folk
Sometimes
ain't kinfolk.
all kid folks ain't kid folks. And sometimes that money was too good for some people. And in some cases, they didn't even get the money that they were promised and all along
Right.
those lines. So you got some folks that were promised this money that didn't get it, but definitely you can go through just about any major city in the southeast and you will see where the highways are placed.
Yep. Also, there's a community in South Carolina where I grew up. It's the Gullah community. Well, they have decimated that land and built highways because those people, again, they were for it was kind of like the Native Americans, where they were pushed off into a reserve that was nothing, that was trash land, and they made it something. Now they're thriving. They have their own religion. They have their own currency.
Hmm.
Mm.
That's what terrifies them. We create our own currency. I mean, this is a totally different discussion here. But I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to leave it alone real quick. But the reason why they killed Muammar Gaddafi is because he was working on the golden denarii with the BRICS nation. So they killed him because if they created the golden denarii, America has no money now. The dollar is nothing. It's a promissory note because America is broke. It has
This
been broke since the
ni-
60s.
1971 is when Nixon pulled the United States off the gold standard. And for those
Right.
who don't know what we're talking about, money has to be backed by something. Otherwise, it's just a
Exactly.
piece of paper.
It's just a piece
So
of
the
paper.
American dollar that Gene is talking about is not worth anything. It's not backed by gold. We've been off the gold, money backed gold system since 1971 with Richard Nixon as president.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. And I bet most 9 out of 10 Americans don't even know that.
Don't know that. Yeah.
Well, not exact, but you got a lot of people that don't know because they highlight this one country that they try to make as the evil bad guys and all along those lines. And I'm not saying that there wasn't some corruption in Venezuela, but I also saw what the
Oh
Venezuelan
yeah.
leaders did with Detroit and a number of other things. So that was done
Yeah.
intentionally. They were trying to actually enhance some of our societies, and that's part of the reason that they were painted as bad guys and all along those lines. I'm not saying that there's not some corruption in Venezuela and other Latin American countries, but it was done, as you were just saying, Gene, there was some intentionality to the reasons that they were broken down. Because you can just look at what, I forget which leader it was, but I think it might have been Hugo Chavez or one of them was trying to
Yeah.
go into Detroit and other places and to support our institutions.
Right. Right. Because when the car industry left Detroit, Detroit was decimated.
Right.
I mean, absolutely decimated. They had nothing. And so also, if you go with Chavez, and we're going to talk about him, like he also had free education, free health care. He had a whole program to teach the people in his country how to read who did not know how to read. And I mean, again, yes, there was some dirty things going on behind the books, but I mean, you have these programs that help
Bro,
the
what
majority of the people.
that's is that not the pot calling the kettle black? The United States
Exactly.
has no moral high ground, or there's
At
no
all.
country in Europe that has any moral high ground to
Right.
talk about corruption.
Right. Exactly. But that's that what is it? The bait and switch.
Well, it's a total beta switch, and like you said, they got no moral grounds. It's like when people try to tell me that there are, and I know it's a slightly different topic, that there are no political prisoners in the United States, and I'm going like, have you seen Leonard Peltier? Have you seen the guy from Move? Have you seen a
Uh,
number of others that I can point to,
uh,
including some
Mumia
that?
Abu Jamal.
Yep, that's the one I'm thinking about from Move.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mumia Abu Jamal. Yeah. How long has he been in jail? 40 years?
It's been some ridiculous. This is
Something
like
like
the
that.
40 years.
Brother Peltier, same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Man. Anyway,
I
back to
know
the subject at hand.
this is a hard topic
Man.
for me, this whole thing, because all it does is make me angry.
Yeah. Right.
And I think we've got to get past being angry and do deeper dives and
On the
educate
solution.
ourselves and then educate our people and then come up with solutions.
Solution. Exactly.
So, I mean, I think it starts with educating yourself,
Right.
educating your people, because we got to wake up.
Right.
We as a
Right.
people, I mean, that crabs in a bucket mentality didn't start with us that you
Right.
mentioned at the beginning of the show.
Right. Right.
It didn't start with us, but we've
Right.
adopted it now
Exactly.
as a people. Yeah.
Yeah.
We see a brother rise out of the ghetto. The first thing we're doing is trying to pull him back down.
Right. Right. He's dirty. He's a sellout.
Yeah. That didn't originate with us.
Right.
No,
Well,
it
I mean,
didn't originate with us, but not that. But how many times do we see? And you kind of alluded to it earlier with what was going on in Kansas City, but it's also happened in Durham and a number of other cities as well. How many times do you hear people that are knowing that there are black institutions and black financial institutions, including insurance ones, and the first thing that they'll do is tell you that they will not support them. So sometimes I'm not saying that we got to support them if they're not doing right by their by us and everything, but we do need to kind of like those that are doing well. We need to find ways to support those institutions, and there are some institutions that are doing quite well in the area, but they're not getting the love and support that they need to get because we're too busy running to the big players, whether that's Chase or Bank of
Right.
America or a number of other ones. But we've got some
Right.
institutions in our own space, including some fiscal institutions that we need to be
Yep.
supporting.
Yep.
This is true.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, in every community, aside from ours, the dollar circulates several times before
I
it
saw that.
leaves their community.
I saw
Mm-hmm.
that stat.
Us, we get money and spend it immediately somewhere else.
Yeah.
We
Mm-hmm.
rarely spend money in our communities, and that is devastating to us as a people. Because again, you got to think the Jewish community is the whole basis of the music industry and the film industry. Those are multi-billion-dollar industries that are controlled primarily by the Jewish community, and that's
Yep.
because they feed each other. They give each other
Yeah.
contracts. You know what I mean? They do business with each other constantly. They make sure that dollar circulates.
Yep.
We'd rather go to the white man on the corner. Hey, man, can you do? You know what I mean? As opposed to, hey, brother, let's work on this together. Let's build this. So, and that's I think that's a big step. If we can reverse that and make our dollar circulate more within our communities, we can do so much better.
Well,
Yeah, and
while you're saying that, let me throw some of these out. Some of the largest black-owned banks in the U.S.
mm-hmm.
Liberty
Okay,
Bank and
let me write it
Trust.
down.
Yeah, Liberty Bank and Trust
Mm-hmm.
in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
One United Bank in
Mhm.
Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Carver Federal Savings Bank in New York, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Industrial Bank in Washington, D.C.
Love it.
Citizens Trust Bank.
I've heard of that.
Broadway Federal Bank.
Mm-hmm.
City First Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
And the Harbor Bank.
Yep.
heard of them too.
And what's funny is when I try to do a deeper dive on those banks, the error that I get?
What?
Page not found.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
That's
wow.
exactly.
When you want to look up more results, page not
Right,
found.
right. Yeah.
But
Well, we
as
got,
of May 2024, One United Bank is the largest black-owned bank, FDIC insured bank in the United States, worth around $625 million in assets. Offices in California, Florida, and Massachusetts.
Wow.
we've also got to do better in terms of what we're doing as consumers as well. Because I was just reading something. I think it was in the University of Georgia earlier, and they were talking about. I think we're going to go into like the $1 trillion range. I think they're saying that later this year we'll be at $1.8 trillion. That is the African American purchase power, and all along those lines. But unfortunately, and I know that most of you gentlemen will agree with this, we don't always spend it on things that we need to be spending it on because a lot of the
Right.
things that we're spending it on are
You
things that
flashy.
are harmful to us and all along those lines because they were talking about some of the things that we are spending on and some of it is things that we've dealt with on this show as well as other shows because apparently we're spending a whole lot of money on salty foods and things along those lines. So there's a number of things that we are spending that are costly in terms of our health because I know we often
Right.
have talked about health on this show as well because they were talking about some of the things that we are buying in terms of our food costs and some of the things that we are buying in
Right.
terms of those things that are harmful to us in that sense. So we've got so they said here's what I was looking for. Black consumers spent $7.4 billion on diet and weight loss products and approximately 1.5 billion on groceries. So definitely that's something that we've got to look at what we're buying in the
Gotta switch
grocery
that.
space because it says that salty snacks are the most purchased category by black consumers and soft drinks come in second place. And I know that I'm guilty of that as well. So and then vegetables and herbs come in third place. But definitely we're buying a whole lot of salty foods.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's sad to me because I feel like we've just given up and fallen into the narrative
Mm-hmm.
that
Hmm.
this generation is just tired and is there's no fight and will just go along with what's been given. You know,
Right.
the generation, those warrior generations of the 40s and 50s are dying off, where the black family was a strong nucleus, family. The black dollar stayed in the black community. I just think that generation of people is slowly dying off, and that's scary
Yeah.
because if we don't return to that narrative and that behavior, that mentality of taking care of ourselves, um, I think we've become so complacent and just allowing government to take care of us, and that's
Right.
exactly where they want us because now
Right.
we are under their thumb and we are under
Um,
control, and we're right back to slavery.
No,
right.
but not,
Exactly.
well, I'm sorry.
What was Mark saying there?
Come on back in the room, Mark.
Go ahead. Oh, well, here he comes.
You're
What
on
were you
mute.
saying?
Can't hear you.
All right, now y'all should be able to hear me. The statistic I found that was very scary is that blacks and Hispanics outspend whites by 30% on, are you ready for these items? Clothing, cars, and jewelry.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I said flashy stuff. Yeah, always like that. You gotta think around tax season. You see people with new cars and new clothes and new jewelry and all that stuff, as opposed to investing their money in something that's gonna make them money.
Right.
Hmm.
I mean, we're all guilty of it. I know I didn't do it this year, but
But no defense of that because it's not intelligent spending.
Right.
But when you've lived a life of poverty and
right,
lack for so long, and again, I'm not excusing this because it is not intelligent spending, but
right,
I'm just saying the mentality here is when you've lived in lack for so long and you get
right,
a check,
right.
that you feel like is, oh, I've got
Check.
free money, and it's not
Right.
free money, but we've got a
Yes.
check to spend. We spend it on frivolous things because you've gone so long not being able to buy. You've been the window shopper, you know,
Right.
that sees things and wants things, but you can't buy them. And now all of a
Right.
sudden you've got a stimulus check or you've got a tax
Tax
return check
return.
But
that,
like
yes, you should be investing in savings or paying down some of the current debt you have today
Right.
so that you can have money to spend tomorrow. That's the
no,
Um,
mentality that we should have. But
we should
right.
have that
um,
mentality, but
Instant gratification.
the reason y'all are seeing me chuckle a little bit is because literally my other job, y'all know I got way too many jobs. I feel like the old character from In
I
Living
hear
Color
you.
and everything. But one of the jobs is a testing company, and they boosted our pay so that the last check I got was actually a little bit of a boost. I think it was like $20 an hour or something like that. But it was a boost in pay, and I was talking because, like Gene, I am very much connected to my mom, and just like I know his mom watches this show and everything. And that was the first thing that Valerie, whose birthday I mentioned to y'all last time, which was a couple of weeks ago. The first thing that mom said was, and look, this is a woman in her 80s talking to a man in his 60s and everything, was like, now that you got that money, I don't need you to spend it on anything foolish or anything along those lines. I wanted to make sure that I was going to spend it on something useful and not just be going out there and buying stuff willy nilly and all along those
Right.
lines. So that's why I was chuckling when y'all said that because I was going like, "Yep, just heard that lecture. Just heard it from mom."
well, then look at Love Misunderstood Institute's last two comments.
Mhm.
I mean, those are powerful. It's easy to
Yeah.
give up when you don't have hope and help. When you wake up every day and there's no hope or no help or support, that's what creates that poverty or lack mentality
Poverty
that
constant.
consumes you. But yeah, poverty there it is. That literally consumes you and you're left helpless.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, I get it. And, not like you said, not. I mean, no judgment
Excusing
because I
it.
get it and I've done it. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
done it myself for years. Um, because yeah, it's difficult when you don't have things, and it's like you want stuff. I mean, you deserve. You work hard, so you deserve to have some of the things that you want as well as things that you need. But we go overboard, And the first thing, what I started doing this year, thankfully, is started putting when I got money, I put away a percentage first, and then I, you know, a certain portion of it will go to pay bills, and hopefully I'll let this sit back here and make, make me some money, but we'll see what happens. But at least I know on the front end, I put some money away. That's going to be there. It's going to go untouched. I put in an account that I can't remember the password to most of the time. So,
You got the
so like,
password. I've done that
right.
before.
So I can't touch it. I can't touch it because I don't remember the password. I got to create a new one, and that's a whole process.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to keep putting money in there. It's on my phone. I can put money in there,
Hmm.
and I look back in a few months, and I got this. So,
Right.
But there's two things I know we only got a few more minutes, and one of them I know is the one that we are all guilty of because we're supposed to be trying to work at getting a house and all along those lines. But some of those same people that I told you that told me that there is no discrimination in the banking industry have also tried to claim that there is no discrimination in housing. But we know gentrification is real. We know that sometimes there are neighborhoods that used to be historically ours that have been bought up and fancified and all along those lines and everything. But you'll have some people that will claim up and down that anybody can get a house and anybody can get a home and all along
no,
those lines. And there is even a homeless population that is facing issues as well. So there's a number of things within that housing discrimination conversation that we can make
oh yeah,
a whole hour show just on housing discrimination and that issue. Because
Well, I don't know if either one of you been to Kansas City. You
mm,
can drive right now,
mhm,
down Troost Avenue. And I want to say on the west side of Troost Avenue, um, you're going to see new homes, new
mhm,
apartment complexes, new fresh businesses. UMKC is connected to that. So they've brought in a lot of new stuff, new dental
mhm,
school of dentistry there. But you just literally look across the street
yeah.
on the east side of Truce, and it looks like
Shotgun
Bosnia,
houses,
mhm,
yeah.
like a bomb was just dropped, and like a nuclear bomb was just
mhm.
dropped.
No.
How does that happen?
Yeah,
It's very easy to happen. I have not been to Kansas
it
City. I
happens
have
here
been to
too.
Memphis, and I know that it exists in Memphis. It definitely exists here
Yeah,
in Durham because I literally can. When I'm at this cultural arts center, I literally can throw a rock at some homes that were recently built, and there are a lot of European and Asians and other folks that have moved into this neighborhood. But no, around the corner is literally some of the neighborhoods that you're talking about that are very rough looking neighborhoods and all along those lines. So they're literally right next to each other in that space and everything. I mean, I
Kansas,
can look.
yeah, Kansas City is full of that. You can drive a 2 block radius and be like,
Mhm,
"Oh man, this is wonderful. I love this. This neighborhood, these homes." Go another block over, and you're like,
I need to lock my
"What?"
doors.
Yeah, you're locking your doors and holding your gun, and it is just insane.
Yeah,
I
yep.
live a block and a half from Duke University and everything, and I get a daily report about crime that's going on in the neighborhood. And unfortunately, some of the crime is coming from a neighborhood that is literally maybe 3 blocks from the campus, if that. So literally, there are some fancy apartments, and then there are some what we would call the hood that are literally
Hmm.
like you're saying about Kansas City. They are that
Hmm.
close together. But one of the things that I talk about even on some of my lectures is that sometimes people don't even realize how close they are to the quote unquote other half. So the other half
Right.
literally is right around the corner from them, and they don't even know that because they are living in a narrow narrative.
I think here in Kansas City, they're starting to realize the other half is just a block over, because what you're
Hmm.
starting to see now is gated communities.
Yes, we're seeing that
Uh,
here. We're seeing that here as well.
Some of the movies that we've watched are now is reality coming playing out in real life, where they're gating up communities and only certain people are allowed in and out of that.
right,
So
right. Oh yeah.
I do have one other fiscal one because I know we've only got a few more minutes to go that I was going to ask both of you about. What is our thoughts as we're talking about fiscal trauma? Because there's another trauma that is going on. Because I saw a friend of mine playing it yesterday. I was teasing him about it and everything, and he actually is a radio DJ. But you got these folks that are trying to get the quick money because you got that lovely phone, that same phone that I used to take that picture earlier, and they're always getting these little gimmick things like the one with Got the King and a number of other things where you supposedly can win this instant money, but all things that
Hmm.
Mark be on
Look
point
at
and then just probably pushing a
right,
button, doing
right,
research and pushing himself right out of the conversation.
right.
Mark, you just pushes yourself right out the conversation, huh?
the computer is trying to have a moment and don't want me to speak the truth. That's all it is and everything. But Gene, what's your take? Because I mean, this has become a new popularity where there's all these. I call them the phone quick gimmicks that are out there, and the apps that are swinging up and down that you can win instant money, and all you got to do is play the game, and it'll put the money in your PayPal and whatever else. So it's like these instant money schemes that are the other hustle that creates financial trauma, because then you got people going like, oh, I can make this quick money like the lottery, but now
Right.
it's off of your phone.
Right. It's the itch. They gotta. It's like it's a distraction because I mean, can you? How much time do you have to spend on this game to make money enough to live? You know, you take a big chunk of your life that could be doing something that is actually like long term beneficial.
Right.
You know how these things are fads. You know, eventually you won't be able to do that anymore. You still have to figure out how beyond this and take care of yourself. So it's just a waste. To me, it's a waste of time. It's a distraction. So I don't play like on my phone. I've deleted all of the games. I just don't. I don't play games. I don't have time for games. I got real life. Life is my game. So I'm trying to perfect this. And you know, if it ain't something I can look at long term to build something substantial that could benefit, the generations come after me, I don't want anything to do with it. I just don't.
That makes sense. What's your take on it, Coach G? Because, like I said, you got people, and you're right, Gene. Some people will be playing those games for uh, days, if not hours on end, and everything, and they're thinking that they're gonna win that instant money and all on those lines. Because we do have an instant society.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think the answer is Love Misunderstood Institute just said, earlier, poverty and lack have consumed the minds of the hopeless.
Mhm.
Yep.
Poverty and lack have consumed the mind of the hopeless, and that people are so desperate in today's times that they will jump on any and everything. And
Right.
that falls right into predatory lending, because
Yes.
these
Yeah.
groups that do these little game things that you're talking about are um, preying on, you might as well say, the weak or the less fortunate, because they know there's the desperation there.
Right.
And love
Some of these
misunderstood for
car
the
loans
most.
and payday loans and all that kind of stuff, predatory
Yeah.
lending is just preying on what people don't have. And hey, you have a car, so we can give you this loan, and the
Right.
loan is 500%.
Right.
She also
You
brought up
paying
another good point, which is that you're
four,
given
five
access
times.
to your financial accounts, and that's falling into another trap because you're given access to the accounts, and then they can do whatever they want to with the account. I was actually earlier today on one of those buses, and the bus driver brought up a scary point, which is the nature of satellites and how the satellites rule things. Because he was telling me that a lot of people get excited by these EV cars. Those EV cars can be stopped literally on the dime. Because he told me that a police officer told him that. So a police officer told him that with the satellite power, if they're chasing you, all they gotta do is get your license plate, and the car will be stopped within the 3 miles. Imagine that you're going down the road and you did something wrong, and they can send a notice, and the next thing you know, if the car will come on and be like, "You must find a stop in 3 miles."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a whole nother. This technology and AI and all that stuff. That's a whole nother conversation that can last forever.
Well, it's just pushing. All these things are pushing. I'll say it this way: all these things are creating a greater people better wake up.
Hmm.
People, especially in this country, better wake up. Couple reasons there, because I feel like what's happening now is the middle class is being smushed out, and I think America is at its optimum best when there's a big middle class.
Exactly.
But now the middle class has been squeezed out, and there's an increase in the lower level and an increase. So now you're going to have the haves and the have-nots, just like we see in our movies,
Right.
um, that are out there now.
But Coach
Um,
G, in that same space, and we can go a few minutes over and everything, but in that same space and along those same lines, think about the rent, and even come back to the other talking point you had around housing discrimination. I was always told that you never wanted to spend, I think it was 25% on your rent or anything along those lines. But you got some people now that are literally spending probably 50 or in some cases 60% of their
There you
income
go.
on their rent. So they're already in a financial trauma at
Yeah.
that point. Because
Yeah.
imagine that if you are making, let's say, $3,000 or $4,000 a month, and your rent is 1,500 to 2,000, that's about half of your rent. It's not
Right.
25%. So you already are at a disadvantage
That's
within the financial standpoint because you have sent half of your money for that month into the coffers of the landlords. And then sometimes it's not
Mhm.
even the immediate landlords, because there are a lot of these apartment complexes and others that are absentee landlords. So who knows where the heck you're sending the money to? You might be living in Kansas, and you might be sending the money to California, because the landlord
Right.
might actually be in California, and you don't even have a way to directly reach them.
Right.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. But I guess what maybe we need to have another discussion and maybe a later date. We've got to start talking about the narrative of how do we fix all this? How do we change all this? What are steps that we can take to um, regain generational wealth? Um, I'm entering a space of life insurance again. Knew some financial solutions, NFS, and I know life insurance is a big way to recover the wealth gap in one generation.
Right.
So we'll definitely have some talks, people. Our audience needs to hear some solutions. So I'm
Right.
sure you hear our frustration today, because if you're a black or brown person, it's frustrating. The
And
the
like you,
narratives, all the narratives are set up against you. The media is set up against you. All the things, all these different things, and it becomes depressing. It's a weight that you carry every single day. But we are who we are, and too much is given, as the word would say. Much is required, and
Right.
we have been given as a race many talents and gifts and creativity and strength and courage and bravery, and we just got to remember who we are and get
Right.
up, get woke, and get back to what we used to do.
Get
yep,
active.
Hmm.
because it was a life insurance company that literally created or helped create the Black Wall Street here and everything. So you can look them
Right.
up. And North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company was founded in 1898. As a matter of fact, that was one of the catalyst for the Black Wall Street and all along those lines. So it's been a company that's been around and has some great history and all along those lines. So definitely that's something you've got to support, is kind of this companies like you were saying earlier that are around. Unfortunately, North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company went defunct in during the pandemic. So unfortunately, it's no longer there, but there are still some offshoots of it that are continuing, and some other insurance companies that are out there as well. Because like you said, you're doing that stuff in the insurance space, and there are others that are doing stuff in the insurance space.
Right.
So insurance is very important, and it's something we need to be considering, just like we need to be considering something else we can get to, which is generational wealth, because that's something I'm big on, with this notion, because I know that my cousin is now the third generation, because it was grandma and granddad's land that got passed to my mom's generation, and after one of the aunts passed, then it is now in my cousin John's space, and he's actually doing some renovations on the pond on his section. So he might even be getting some fish and other things going on to bring some revenue to himself and all along those lines. So he's working on that. So that's something we got to do. Also, let's think about keeping the land in our space, because too often
Yes.
during our time we lost a lot of
Right.
land, and we
Hmm.
swindled out of some land as well.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Agree.
I'll take the latter there. Not necessarily lost some land, but swindled out of the land.
Swindled, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the way this society works, man. And like you said, it's you have to find multiple ways to create generational wealth, not just
Hmm.
one. The saying is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, um, jobs are
I think
created.
we got panel
Yeah.
discussion coming up, and I know financial trauma will be one of those. I got a good friend of mine who's one of the actors with me in my stage play, that is well versed in that I'll bring on as a guest for our panel and let him talk about how insurance can be, help recover that wealth gap in families in a generation. So
Yeah. Awesome. That's gonna be
Well,
a great
let's see.
discussion.
Kind of, I was seeing I had an economic one, but I do have one about one of my local tech schools that is trying to educate people. It's got a brother and sister in that, so we'll go out with that and a couple of other things as well. Since there's definitely, we got to do education in order to get folks engaged. So that's right.
right,
We
right,
will
right.
bring this one on to close us out. It's not a typical one, but since it's laying there and it's talking about economics and it's one of our tech schools, I'll go out with that one if that's okay with you fellas and everything, and we'll get ready to get on out of here and all along those lines. Well, another powerful discussion, and I look forward to hearing that panel discussion. But yeah, it was another rock and roll one, despite the fact that the computer was trying to like cause trouble with my life and everything. But that's all right. I still got my point.
Hey, it's been your boy, Coach G, and
Gene Williams.
And the producer Mark was giving some insight as well. We're going to get on out of here and all along those lines. So lay it out.
This is gonna be great.
You're going to like it here.
You're gonna love it here.
You're gonna work hard here. You're gonna meet new people.
And learn new things.
Great thing.
And do stuff you never thought you'd do.
Let me lay it all out for you.
Auto shop.
Solar panels.
Computer lab.
Biomed lab.
Language lab. Dental lab.
Phlebotomy.
Oh, I hate needles.
Financial aid office.
Well, that's important.
Fire academy. Seriously? Cafe. Bookstore.
Welding shop.
But that's not the best part.
The best part?
Amazing teachers.
Really opened my eyes.
I love getting started with a new group of students.
You need something? Just ask.
Really supportive staff. This guy's hilarious.
Super smart people in my classes.
I learned as much from them as they do from me.
Boom, it just comes alive right here in the classroom.
So many groups to join. Debate club. The final draft.
Gamers of Durham, baby.
Practical Nursing Club. Business Leadership Initiative. Phi Beta Lambda.
Environmental Science Club.
Amigos Unidos. Spectrum.
Women's leadership club.
Soccer Club.
كلابك استودنتية عالمية.
I found my home here.
This was the right choice for me. We want students to be their best.
You're gonna push yourself.
The people around you.
They make you better.
I didn't know I could do that.
But I did it.
To see what they're able to accomplish? Wow.
I had no idea what I was going to do. The people here will help you figure it out.
It's so welcoming. Open arms.
They all said,
There was just one thing.
I had to do.
Do great things.
hacer grandes cosas.
Do great things.
Let's do this.
We are sending you signals every day.
We are sending you signals every day.
We're sending you signals every day.
We're sending you signals every day.
I'll be feeling sad, but you're too busy to notice.
We are sending you signals every day. I'll tell you that I'm feeling afraid, but you'll just tell me everything is okay.
I'll get real angry about something, but you'll take it personally.
We are sending you signals every day. My grades will drop, and you'll yell at me for not trying.
I stopped caring about how I look.
And you didn't even notice.
We are sending you signals every day.
I don't see my friends anymore.
And you think it's good that I'm always home.
We are sending you signals every day. I'll tell you I wish I could go to sleep and never wake up. And you tell me to stop staying up so late.
We are sending you signals every day.
I need you to look. I need you to listen. And ask me if you can help.